Hey everyone, welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News fail to report on or don't report on enough. And today I am joined by my literal favorite person in the world to podcast with, Hayley Caronia. Welcome, sister.
Hello. We haven't done this in so long. I'm so excited to be back. And this is the first time since your new logo, new look, like new and improved, new year, new podcast, new Chrissy. I love it.
You're so sweet. And it's a big change for you, too. You left me and Outkick and Nashville, and you moved to Florida to launch a show with, I guess, Dan Bongino's former company, because, right, he's with the FBI now, whole thing. But, like, tell everybody about it, because it's the Nightly Scroll with Hayley Caronia, guys. It's like a top 50 podcast now. It literally boggles my mind.
I'm so excited. If you can tell, so I just moved to Florida. I had to get, like, all new furniture because my vibe was very much city. It was giving Nashville. Like, now I live by the beach. I had to kind of like update some things. So I have picture frames behind me, and it literally says like 11 by 14 in all of these. Like, it's not actual pictures yet because I'm going to Walgreens to pick them up today. So yes, slowly but surely moved here a month ago, started a new podcast on Silverlock Media, which was formerly the Bongino Report, obviously with government ethics concerns and what have you. When Dan was selected as the deputy director of the FBI, we had to, unmarry the name and things like that. So few changes there, but Silverlock Media, formerly Bongino Report. So my show is on there on rumble.com, part of the live Rumble lineup, which is very exciting, 6 p.m. Eastern time. So it's definitely been different. It's a challenge. My show at Outkick was taped. So now I'm just live. I'm riffing. It's if I mess up, I mess up. So I do like the authenticity of it, but getting used to some things, but we're having a lot of fun. So it's good.
What's the difference when you're doing a live show? Like, do you actually get to talk to the audience? Like, are you seeing the chat in real time?
Yes. So
what's that like?
That's honestly one of the more fun parts, because I get to kind of riff off the audience, and most of the times the audience is making me like LOL in the chat. Like, they're making jokes. They make it so much more fun. So yeah, I've been really loving that. And it's nice to have a sense of community. Sometimes, like, that people are watching you, but when you're recording, it's like, oh, I'm sitting in this room alone or with my producer or whatever. But when you have the chat there, it's like, oh yeah, there are people watching this. They're watching with me right now. And it's a really nice connection.
Yeah, no, it's nice to like, no, I mean, I feel like you can do that with the comment section, but a lot of the times with comments, like, it's just not as personal. It takes longer. There's just something special about getting and building community. And part of me is like, oh, I love the idea of doing that. The other part of me is like the technology that goes behind that. I just
well, it's when you have a lot of graphics and things like that, it ends up being way more difficult. So yes, there are pros and cons for sure.
100%. But before we hop into the docket today, because we do have a lot of stories to get into. Namely, I am so excited to talk Elon drama with the mama with you. It's going to be really fun. But before we do that, I have been doing my best to keep the audience up to date on all things Eric Adam corruption. And there has been an update. We have talked about this story from its inception, with Sabrina Carpenter being one of the key characters in bringing Eric Adams down in all of this. We've literally been following this since the Sabrina Carpenter music video that started all of this, which is nuts in and of itself. If you've not watched that video, you should watch that video. But the former New York City Fire Department chief, Brian Cordasco, he was the chief of the fire department, obviously, that basically said, yeah, I accepted bribes in exchange for expediting fire safety inspections, and he has now been sentenced to 20 months as of today. Brian Cordasco pleaded guilty to conspiring to solicit and receive bribes, and another FDNY chief, Anthony Saccavano, I can't believe he's Italian last name.
He's Italians, yes.
Yep, I cannot. Yep. He was implicated in the scheme as well, and his sentencing date is going to be on May 14th. So where it ties in with Eric Adams is that the bribe allegations against Adams was that he was pressured by FDNY officials to approve the Turkish consulate building in exchange for a bribe. Now, this indictment doesn't directly implicate Adams, but it makes everything that looks like what we thought was going on with Eric Adams kind of make him look even more suspicious than before. Now, obviously, a lot of these, if not all of these charges have been dropped thanks to, in part, the Trump administration. But as a New Yorker, former recovering New Yorker,
Recovering is, yes, that's a good way to put it.
what do you make of Adams in the run up to this reelection, especially, with these bribery charges kind of following him through all of this?
Sure. Well, am I surprised that politicians are corrupt? No. I was surprised though how, and this was back in 2020, and when Eric Adams was first kind of coming onto the scene as a politician, and Republicans were throwing their support behind him, knowing that Curtis Sliwa wasn't going to win, although it seemed like there was a lot of support behind him, especially with all the crime in New York City, having the founder of the Guardian Angels be mayor. It was kind of this, wow, maybe we'll have this Rudy Giuliani resurgence where New York City might be safe again. I personally left New York City. I grew up right outside of it. I lived in New York City for about 7 years. I left because it was no longer somewhere that I wanted to live. All my friends were moving out of the city. Everyone's moving to the suburbs. Everyone's moving somewhere else. It was not somewhere that was conducive to a quality of life. It was homeless people spitting on me. I can tell you, and I'm getting off the tangent. I will come back to Eric Adams in a moment. But one of my friends, when I was working at Fox News, I will never forget this. She came in to work and her face was like sheet white. It was like she saw a ghost, almost like a tinge of green. And we said, "Are you okay? What happened?" She said, "You will not believe what I just saw." And we said, "What did you see?" She was in the subway and saw a homeless woman poop into her own hand and start throwing it at people waiting for the train. So if that is just a little glimpse of what it is like to live in New York City and be surrounded by the homelessness crisis that is getting worse and worse and worse, that's a good indication of why a lot of people are leaving the city and why we needed to see maybe Republican leadership instead of Eric Adams. Now, Eric Adams wins. And a lot of people in the conservative movement say, well, he's better than the alternative. If we're going to have a Democrat, at least he is this pro law enforcement. He used to be a cop. He was an NYPD officer. Okay, we have not seen a law enforcement officer in Eric Adams as the mayor because, of course, like you just said, we're seeing all these bribery charges that are being dropped. But however, very concerning that someone who is supposed to be a proponent of law and order is now not doing that, not doing what was promised, and honestly, not doing what the American people and the New York residents need in a mayor, which is making the city somewhere that is worth living. And in my opinion, it is not.
That's some of the funnest, I sound dumb, but one of the most fun parts about covering this story in particular is like, I have no vested interest in this, right? Like, Eric Adams, moron. These bribery charges, fascinating. In lieu of Eric Adams, you've got far left progressives that make him look like this moderate beacon of hope. And then now we have Governor Cuomo coming into the race, trying to like resurge his entire political career in this moment. And I'm like, I just don't care what the outcome sucks and it has nothing to do with me no matter what. So it's just fun to cover. But real quick, before we get into our stories, what do you make of Cuomo coming back into, like, just from like a general political analysis? What do you make of him getting back into this now?
I think that Cuomo has seen his brother, who is disgraced CNN host, fired, right? He's kind of had this resurgence on on News Nation, rather.
Yeah.
Now, I think a lot of people are seeing, okay, if you make good with the right, and if you are a common sense person, cancel culture doesn't mean that you get canceled forever. You can have this comeback. You know, you see Cuomo having conversations with Tucker Carlson, and he's kind of like making his way back, crawling out of the CNN hole that he was in into the good graces, if you will, of newsmakers and in society. Not that conservatives are on board with Chris Cuomo, but it seems like he's kind of making these inroads, or at least he's trying. Now, I think Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo, sees this and is like, okay, well, people aren't going to hate me forever. The news cycle moves fast. People will forget that I am an accused, you know, abuser and whatever else. So, and of course, New Yorkers do not forget what happened during COVID-19 when he forced all of the elderly and nursing homes to he just essentially sent them to get sick and or worse. So a lot of New Yorkers will not forget that. I think New Yorkers, not speaking from personal experience, but we could be grudge holders. Okay. We don't forget. So I don't think that the New Yorkers are going to take kindly to Governor Cuomo's resurgence. I don't think he's going to have the same luck that his brother has.
Yeah, I think you're hitting it on the nail on the head. Is like he thinks that his ascension back into politics is going to be similar to that of his brothers. It's not. Chris has been honestly quite lucky and still had a difficult time. Like I don't hear Chris Cuomo's name nearly as much as I used to. Like, he's kind of having an ascension back by fading into a little bit more of irrelevancy, so he's not talked about as much.
Right.
Whereas, like, I don't think Andrew Cuomo, the timing of it was wrong. I'm not saying it could never happen. It's just like too soon, man.
Too soon.
But anyway,
I agree.
yeah,
soon.
Too soon. Let's get into our stories for the day. So, what we have on our docket, we have the reported number of illegal immigrants who have been either arrested or deported since Trump took office. And wow, this number is staggering. You guys are going to be appalled. Well, appalled at how many people were in this country in the first place. Plus, we have an update on the Luigi Mangione trial, some insanity at the Ivies, including Brown in Colombia. And at the end, like I alluded to, Hayley and I are going to be talking about Elon Musk's baby mama drama. So without further ado, let's get into our 5 underreported stories that you need to know. Today's show is brought to you by my merch line, Based. I'm an independent journalist, and the best way to support this show is by purchasing a hat, a hoodie, or the new Based Not Basic tote, or really any item from the Apparel collection. Instead of asking you guys for donations to fund my independent journalism, my business partner and I created a line of merch called Based Apparel. Based means you're the opposite of woke. It means you're based in logic, you're based in truth. You get it. Head over to basedinlogic.com to check out our latest apparel. My personal favorite right now is the Based two-tone shirt. And remember, when you buy merch, you are directly supporting this show. Thank you, friends. So since President Trump's return to office, ICE deportations and arrests are surging. A new report from the New York Post claims 113,000 illegal immigrants have been arrested and over 100,000 have been deported from the United States in the last 72 days. We are also learning that illegal border crossings are down 94% since January 20th. So we saw at the end of the Biden administration approximately 50,000 illegal border crossings into the U.S. per month. As of March 2025, that number went from 50,000 to 7,000. Hayley, how did that happen? Like, how was it just rhetoric? Was it like the implementation of the policy that you think expedited this? Like, what was the one thing for you that was like switching point?
Well, I think that Tom Homan, as the border czar, I keep saying this is the get-ish done administration. This is it used to be promises made, promises kept. They are keeping these promises, but this is like, this is the warp speed. This is Operation Warp Speed, what we're seeing at the border. We have to like rebrand Operation Warp Speed and just say, it has nothing to do with the COVID-19 vaccine. It has everything to do with what we're seeing on the border. I think less people are going to try border jumping because they know that it's not going to end well for them. And anyone who's in the country already, they're running scared because they know that they either have to self-deport or they'll never have a chance at citizenship ever again. But, there was a story that I covered on my show yesterday where I have hope on the border, but it just seems like this has been so broken for so long that anyone who gets deported, it's like, well, the next Democrat president that comes in, they'll just wait and then they'll come right back in. It seems like not only do we need to deport these people, we need to establish what our secure border really means. It's not enough to just deport these people because in the past, we've deported people and they've come back. I reported on my show yesterday an illegal immigrant who's been back and forth 16 times since 2002. So it's not enough to deport. We either have to send them to these facilities like the one in El Salvador that is maximum security. They don't get any recreation time. They don't get to go to the gym. They don't get any visitors, etc. We either need to use that toolkit or I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but deporting just seems like it's not enough.
Yeah, I get what you're saying with not just undoing what Biden did, but establishing what we can do to prevent that in the future. And I've been talking about that and actually alluding to that to another story. We're going to talk about Mahmoud Khalil, that ICE or that student that's been held in ICE detention center for being a Hamas sympathizer, seemingly. And I get what the Trump administration is doing, right? Like, we're trying to rapidly undo what the Biden administration did in the first 100 days. So I'm withholding criticism about this. But if we get into year 3 and year 4 and we haven't set up new guardrails so that our future institutions cannot just, let the floodgates of illegal immigrants come in, like, what's the point of this? Actually, about your the El Salvador thing that you brought up, there's actually an underreported story within this underreported story. We love a little subsection, okay? Yeah. So we know the Trump administration has been working with the government of El Salvador to use the Alien Enemies Act to deport gang members to what has really been, like you alluded to, this hellhole mega prison in El Salvador. And we found out today that on Sunday, an additional 17 alleged Tren de Aragua and MS-13 gang members were handed over to El Salvador on Sunday night, despite that federal judge, James Boasberg, blocking Trump's use of that wartime act, again, the Alien Enemies Act. How do you, I know we're like technically conservative, but you and I are very like common sense girls. How do you toe this line of Trump giving us exactly what we want, but also, we want our leaders to act within the boundary of our laws? Like,
right,
do you see a problem with what's going on in Trump world with this?
It's concerning because on the basis of you want people to do things by the books, I understand that. However, I had the same question, and Border Czar Tom Homan explained that under, I think it's, I don't want to say that the section wrong, but there's a section of law that says that we can deport these people. You don't have to use the Alien Enemies Act. So he said, whether or not the Alien Enemies Act is allowed to be used, we can still deport these people using other laws. So I think they use the Alien Enemies Act to kind of push this forward where they can deport mass amounts of Venezuelan gang members, which I'm obviously all for. But Tom Homan did say, if this is not within the guidelines, we will not use it. We will push forward using other tools in our toolkit, essentially. So I do think that the Trump administration is taking, stock of what's happening with Boasberg and all these judges that are trying to block things, and they are going to do things by the books. Again, people who come into this country illegally, they are subject to deportation. So I think that they'll be able to push through regardless.
Yeah, I also have been subscribing to this idea that the PR from this carries a lot of weight when it comes to the 2026 midterms, which we like to focus on here as well, as like we're already thinking about 2026. And the PR that like, oh, Republicans aren't following the rule of law, I feel like that's kind of like fake baked in to the cake of like Democrats, even if Trump followed the rule of law to T, which most of the time he is, he might be exaggerating certain statutes in the way that he communicates them, but like his team is following it. But the left is going to say that about him anyway. The PR of that is baked into the cake against Republicans heading into 2026. The PR of Democrats are using their political capital to advocate for gang members that are headed to a hellhole prison in El Salvador because they've been murdering people and committing crimes in America. Like, oh,
yeah, I have less sympathy.
Yeah, like it's just not a good look, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It is bad. Speaking of potentially bad looks, I want to talk about Luigi Mangione. I feel like we've all gone silent of him.
Good looks. Potentially good looks, depending on who you're asking. I feel like
you're on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go boy.
Oh my gosh. The man is like this hot sensation on TikTok. Actually, side note before we even get into this, Hales, I'll never forget. I put out a video like explaining what we knew about Luigi Mangione the day that he gunned down, the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. And it still has like 1.4 million views. And all I did was state like, this is what he's done. And let me just say, like, the comments were like, he deserves better. I'm like, oh my Oh my goodness. I had no idea. I thought we were all going to be on board with Luigi Mangione bad, but that is not the case at all.
Not the case on TikTok, no.
No. So here's a story. Luigi Mangione is actually getting in trouble for his socks, which sounds like an effing insane things to say. But Luigi has been given special treatment by the court. That is not my opinion. That is what this is called. He's been given special treatment for his, quote, fashion needs. He is allowed to change out of his orange jumpsuit into civilian clothes for court appearances. But according to prosecutors, heart-shaped handwritten notes were smuggled into the prison inside of a pair of Argyle socks that Luigi was allowed to wear during trial. The best part of this, though, is that Luigi looked at these socks and said, "Those are fugly, they don't look good with my outfit," and he didn't even wear them. Okay, so there are other allegations from the prosecution that we're going to get into, but really quick, I just want to be annoying and psychoanalyze this man for a section. Why do you think that fashion needs were a privilege afforded to Luigi? Like, are there benefits to this that you see?
Yes. Well, I think he absolutely has the TikTok universe behind him, right? And he has this kind of air of being a sex symbol, if you will. And I think being a sympathetic character kind of bodes well for him. Like he's leaning into this where, he's not going to walk in wearing an orange jumpsuit. He's going to walk in wearing his sweater and his popped collar and his Argyle socks, which is interesting because it's kind of like totally opposite of what he was standing for, which was United Healthcare CEO, sticking it to the man and killing someone who's representative of a system that, robs people of affordable healthcare and what have you. So that was kind of his stance. And now all of a sudden he's kind of like cosplaying as this like pretentious, rich, well-dressed asshole. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, you're really right on that. I never thought of it that way of like the way that he's dressing is so different. It's very like East Coast preppy. It's odd. I never thought of it like that. Like my mind is spinning. But at the same time, it kind of does go to the same like he comes across as a very smart or intelligent person, or at least that's how the defense is trying to put it off. So this is kind of the other part of the prosecutor's argument right now is that Luigi right now, he has what's called a specially formatted laptop in jail. So he is afforded this right to have his own laptop that is modified to the detention center's regulations so that he can view, videos, photos, any of the evidence that prosecutors have against him. But in jail, like I didn't know this, I had to do all the research for it. In jail, there are regular desktop computers where Luigi has access to his own email. He can review evidence. He can conduct his research, draft motions, all of that stuff. But defense attorneys say, like, there is not enough time in the day for Luigi to read all of these allegations. He needs his own strategy to view these videos, these photos in his own timeline and on his own time. Now, this is like highly irregular for an inmate to be given any sort of special treatment and laptop, not just the fashion needs, but also, the computer. Now I'm kind of wondering, I had a question of like, what do you think of the laptop and everything? But now I'm kind of wondering, does the laptop play into the fashion need of it? Like we are creating and crafting a narrative of this is a smart, intelligent kid that has been the system is going against this kid who dresses nicely and he's from an elite home in the East Coast and he has his laptop and he's all smart and he knows exactly what he's doing. But really he's just, soothing his own anxiety by looking at pictures of himself and trying to craft narratives in his mind.
Yeah, I don't know what he really has access to on the laptop. Just scrolling on TikTok, I've seen inmates making TikTok videos and dances and whatever. So I don't know what the parameters are for Luigi Mangione, personally. But if he's getting love notes in jail, there were a lot of women who were sending letters to Luigi Mangione, like that kind of like pen pal type situation. It must just be feeding his ego.
Totally. No, you're completely right. And I think that's where it actually starts to come across as bad for the prosecution is special treatment to a degree I think we can understand, right? Like this is a very consequential trial, a very viral trial. So I understand a level of special treatment. I could understand the argument. Listen, if he's in an orange jumpsuit sitting there, he just looks guilty. You know, he's in all orange. But the way it's been manipulated from just, you know, we want him to look innocent to we're crafting a whole narrative with the laptop and the look and the like, it's fascinating what that could do to a jury's mind.
Yeah. Well, even regardless of the jury, I feel like the ladies on the internet would swoon over Luigi, whether he was wearing an orange jumpsuit or not. I know photos of him had come out kind of during this like perp walk, if you will, and people were making like sexual edits of him on TikTok regardless. So, but yeah, in terms of how the jury sees him, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, maybe they are trying to paint him as this sympathetic character, but it's kind of coming off as like pretentious.
Yes, I think it's backfiring a little. And I hadn't really, until I sat down and had this conversation, I didn't really notice that, like, that was what was irking me, is that he just comes across as a little bit of a prick. I know he's, like, likely a murderer, potentially, allegedly, but, like, he comes across as a bit of a prick. Anyway, some other pricks I want to talk about is Brown University. I'm going to make a hard turn here. So there's this student journalist at Brown University named Ben Rosloff, and he is facing disciplinary actions from the school after sending emails styled after the notorious Doge emails asking federal employees to list. Remember when Elon asked employees in the like all the federal workers to say, please list 5 things that you did in a day this week. And Ben, the student, sent that same email out to administrators at Brown University. And he writes for the student newspaper. So it was kind of under the guise of, hey, you know, I'm writing an article on, you know, Elon Musk and what he was doing with the federal government, and coupling it with what are the administrators at Brown University doing this? Right. And they are literally, I'm not kidding you, saying that this was part of a like harassment campaign and disorderly conduct.
Yeah, they're saying it was emotional abuse.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just as bad as the federal workers. It's insane.
I didn't realize it. This kid has to get like actual legal defense. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, it's FIRE. They've taken up defense for this kid because they're violating very clearly the student's free expression and punishing him for criticizing the administration. What weenies?
No, this is one of the most insane stories. I truly, when you sent it to me, I was like, what? I had not heard of this before. Yeah, it's shocking. The administrators were saying that the issue that they have with these emails, and he's just trolling them, by the way. Like, this is, I wouldn't even say that this is like under the guise of journalism. Like, I think he was like, wouldn't it be funny to see what the administrators at my school are actually doing with their day? And I think that, you know, this student body could be entitled to that information. However, the issue that the Brown employees or the Brown administrators had with this was he might have gotten classified information or information that was not supposed to be for the public or whatever. Who was answering this like trolling email? I don't understand. Why would a Brown administrator be so stupid to answer this email with information that was not supposed to be made public? You know that this kid works for the school newspaper. The whole thing to me was so shocking. He is not in the wrong, by the way. The administrators are beyond dumb.
Yeah. So to clarify what Hayley just said, the school is arguing that when people or if administrators responded to this, well, it's unclear whether administrators responded to this, that this student would have had access to classified information about what administrators were doing in day to day. Why is that on the student? Like, that should be on the administrator, right? The administrator is passing on classified information to a student journalist. Fire the administrator. And you made a good point. Like, this kid has a clear political bent. There's actually a picture of him with a Brown University, one of those like pendant flags, you know, that people hang on their walls, with a chainsaw, just like Elon Musk. And so this guy is clearly conservative. He's like this cute looking little Asian kid. And I'm just thinking, like, you're an administrator. You either throw him a bone because you think this is funny, or you ignore him. I don't understand what possesses professors to go into this like full weenie mode. I know we go on and on, Hayley, you and I, we bitch in our private conversations about this coddling of young people. But why do we coddle these professors and administrators? They're arguably arguably getting worse than young people.
No, they need to go find a safe space, or like, if you can't take the heat of getting in an email from a student, get out of the kitchen. This is quite literally your job. You are supposed to be smart enough if you're teaching kids that get into Brown. If you're supposed to be, that intelligent, you should be intelligent enough to maybe not answer this email or not, divulge classified information, whatever that is, in terms of what professors are doing or not doing. To say that they're weighing disciplinary action for him is wild. I mean, the administrators are in the wrong. They're so weak. They said that this is emotional abuse. This is the same playbook that, by the way, Elon Musk, when he sent that email out to federal workers, they said that this is horrible. How could you do this? How could you ask what you do during the day for your job that is paid for by American taxpayers?
Yeah, I don't
I mean, it's
understand why that's so
mind-boggling.
threatening.
And
No,
I mean,
and
how much does it cost to go to Brown University? Because I think if I
let's
was
find
a parent paying for my child to go to Brown University, I would maybe rethink spending all of this money. It's a private university. It has to be upwards of $60,000 a year.
Oh, yeah, you want to take a guess? I got it pulled up.
Is it more than 60?
Yeah,
75?
$68,000
Okay,
a year.
$68,000 a
That's
year.
frickin' bats that people pay that much money for people to just treat a student with such crassness. It's
This kind
truly
of
appalling.
reminds me, during COVID, where all these students, they went back home, they're doing Zoom school, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden, this is where a lot of parents' eyes were opened as to what their kids were actually learning in school. And in some cases, it was woke indoctrination. In other cases, it was like next to nothing, right? So parents are now all of a sudden being awoken to what's actually happening at these learning institutions. And I feel like parents don't usually get this same kind of access to what's happening at higher learning institutions. Like, they don't really know what their kid is up to at college. They're adults, right? But if parents are paying $68,000 a year for their children to be taught by these like coddled retards, then I mean, I would rethink spending all of that money. I
Oh
would
my
not be
gosh.
happy.
No, you're right though. Like why are people continuing to pay for this? I feel like we've kind of opened the doors and the floodgate to the scam that is higher institutions, specifically some of these. Like, I don't feel the same way I feel about the Ivy Leagues that I do about like my alma mater, like a Michigan State. Sure, they're bad, but they're not this bad. Like, this is a new level of bad. The fact that people willingly do this to themselves, to their bank accounts, when they know what the outcome will be, I almost stop feeling like I've gotten to a point where I don't feel bad for these people. Like, you know what you're
Well,
doing.
the kids are going to be strapped with the student loan debt.
Yeah.
So, I think when you're 18 years old, you sign on the dotted line and you don't really understand how much or how long you're going to be paying this off. And when you go to an institution like Brown, you're not thinking, wow, I'm going to be paying this in my 30s. It's, wow, I get to go to Brown University. It's the name, it's the prestige, and they want to be a part of it, and they want to go to school, and they want to brag to all their friends, like, oh, I'm going to this, prestigious college, this Ivy League. And really, when you pull back the layers of the onion, it's kind of a mess.
If you love this podcast, then you will absolutely love the Underreported Stories Substack. It's an email sent straight to your inbox Monday through Friday. You'll get an in-depth analysis of stories that are underreported, hot takes from me on the biggest news of the day, and Underreported Wrapped, where I'll let you in on personal updates, big news that flew under the radar, and you'll get a few pictures from America's Goodest Boy, my dog, Harper. Check out the link in the description to subscribe for free, and while you're down there, be sure to give this episode a thumbs up or a 5-star review. And to your point about, college writ large and this scam, and really about the Ivy Leagues, I want to get into our next story, which is about a group of Columbia University grads who were throwing a bitch fit. This was like such an embarrassment for Columbia. These graduates tore up their diplomas on campus over the past weekend to protest the school's cooperation with the Trump administration and the Fed's detention of former student Mahmoud Khalil. So, first of all, these people are acting like ripping their diploma has any meaning at all. If I go into my storage unit and go and shred my degree, that doesn't stop the reality that I went to Michigan State and spent thousands of dollars to enrich and attend that university, okay? The symbolic shredding of the degree means abso-fucking-lutely nothing. It's just a way to get attention. What do you think is the point of doing this? Why protest in such a manner?
Well, I think students at Columbia University, whatever they end up studying, it seems like they're just becoming professional protesters. This is like what Columbia University has been known for. I think it's a lot of woke kids. I think it's a lot of rich kids. And I think they're in New York City. They're getting more woke by the second. I think there's somewhat of a social currency to being woke and going to protests. It makes you look like a better person and you're more virtuous and you get to post on social media with your signs and it looks good to their peers. And I think that they've kind of gotten this really bad rep where it started with the pro-Palestine protests and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and it's continued and now they have a student in ICE detention and they're learning the hard way that you can't really incite violence, you can't really support a terrorist organization on college campuses and think that there's no recourse for that. And I'm a free speech absolutist, so I don't know if I necessarily agree with what's happening, but it just seems like on the Columbia's campus it's just a lot of rich woke entitled students who have, I guess, nothing better to do. I don't know if they're going to classes or whatnot, but they've got all this free time to rip up their diplomas. And to your point, that does nothing. I mean, nothing that they're doing does anything. And again, like everyone has the right to peacefully protest. I just don't personally understand protests. I've never been to one. I have a job, like I'm employed, so I'm not really free at the times that these take place, and I'm not going to take off a day of work to go rally and march around and do arts and crafts with my cardboard signs. So for me personally, like I don't see the value in it. I think there's other ways to make your voices heard. I think there's other ways to actually affect change for causes that you care about. I think you can find a charity or do work. But it just seems like marching around and yelling about it is the only way that they know how, and that's what they're known for.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that the woman who is getting the most attention for doing this degree shredding, she's a 2009 graduate, which arguably makes it worse
Oh,
because
100%.
like what were we in middle school or like I think I might have been, I don't 2009, like was I in elementary school? Like what? Why does
No,
it matter what you're doing?
and that
That's so
woman, the
weird.
2009 grad, she said something along the lines when you sent me this article, I was like, this is so
Yeah.
insane. She says, I'm here for pro-Palestine, but I'm also here to march on behalf of all the deportations that are happening right now. It's like, just to insert the current thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you're protesting for, you're just a protester. They don't care. It's like, well, I'm here for this, but I'm also here for this, insert Democrat cause. Like, they
Yeah.
don't really care about pushing or like getting awareness about the cause. It's like they're just there to protest. They're there because they're with their colleagues that are also woke and also Democrats and also liberal, and it makes them feel better. They're part of something bigger. And I just thought it was funny. She's like, yeah, well, I'm here because of this, but I'm also, if you want me to protest because of the border, like I could do that too. Like, just let me know what I'm here for.
You're so right. It doesn't matter. They're going to show up no matter what and do the exact same thing, whether this was happening in the capacity of like Mahmoud Khalil or whether we're talking about deportations or whether we're talking about, I don't even freaking know. You're right. Insert stupid cause.
Yeah, like if you walked up to the protesters and asked them about Elon Musk, they'd be like, that's what we're here for.
Yep.
You like just insert whatever. And they'd be like, yeah, that's what we're here for. Like, we'll march for anything.
I'm glad you said that about the protesting things because I always feel like that's the Canadian in me. Like, Canadians are not big outside of the truckers that we saw, which was like an exception, a very rare exception. Like, we're not protesters. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like the one feature I carried over is I just like, I don't like it. I remember like distinctly becoming conservative, seeing so many of the protests and the way that war veterans were treated when I was learning about history in the Vietnam War. And so protests have always kind of just ached me out, and I've associated them directly with treating people who are, adjacent to a cause but actually have nothing to do with it in such a negative way. And that's what I've seen now translate over with these current ones of like, they just truly, like, to use one of their own words, dehumanize conservatives and tell people
Yeah.
that, 55% of the country are these subhuman, vile people through these pointless marches that they have. It's
Yeah,
just so
I
dumb.
always tell this story. When I was living in New York City, I was living downtown at this point, and there was a protest in the middle of the day. At the time, I was working at a late night cable news show, so I was leaving at an abnormal time. Like, I didn't, I wasn't part of the 9 to 5 commuting rush. I kind of left my house at different times. So it was midday, and I left my apartment. I'm on my way to my job because I'm employed. And I remember seeing all of these protesters in Battery Park. And I was thinking to myself, like, do these people just take time off from work to protest, or are they not employed, or do they have a job like me where they have, unusual hours? But they're all standing there with their signs, and it was a climate change protest. Well, I went back to work, came home, littered with all of their cardboard signs. All of the cardboard signs that they made to protest climate change were all over the ground. They didn't make it into the trash cans. They didn't make it into the recycling bins. They're all over the place. Like, these people don't care about anything. They care about showing up. They care about being the face of something better, but they don't care enough to do something good and actually affect change.
Yeah, you're right. You're so right. I'm sure you love to hear those words, but you are. For the sake of time, I do want to get into our fifth and final story just really quick, and then we've got to talk about the Elon baby mama drama. It's my favorite story. So real quick, I want to talk to you guys about Democrat Senator Raphael Warnock being under fire after reports revealed he's been living rent-free in a $1 million luxury home in Atlanta purchased by Ebenezer Baptist Church, where he serves as a senior pastor. Tax filings and real estate records show the church acquired the property back in 2022 and has covered maintenance, taxes, and other costs, while Senator Warnock resides there without paying rent at all. Critics, including myself, argue that this is raising a bunch of ethical and legal questions, especially since this man is a sitting U.S. senator on a public salary. And there are watchdog groups now that are questioning whether the arrangement constitutes an improper financial benefit or potential violation of Senate ethics rules. Warnock's team has defended the situation, saying it's really common for pastors to receive housing as part of their role. For me, Hayley, it's not even that the church is providing housing. It's that they're providing $1 million luxury housing for a sitting senator. What the hell? What do you make of this?
I think if you're a pastor and you get housing because that's your full-time job, I can understand that. The ethics concerns come up when you're a sitting U.S. senator, of course. And it's also a $1 million mansion with a 100 bottle wine fridge and all these other things. I'm like, this is like now not really adding up. And it's giving BLM to me. It's giving Black Lives Matter, when all these people, they rallied on behalf of Black lives and social justice and George Floyd and whatever else. And then they took all this money that they were raising and fundraising, and they bought themselves $6 million mansions in the Hollywood Hills. It's like this. And of course, that wasn't even a separation of church and state issue. Here we have a pastor senator who's getting free rent. And it's funny to me, like, the Democrats, they always vote on issues to raise taxes. Like, raise taxes, the government's going to make this free and not free, and everything's going to be free, paid for by the American taxpayer. And then this one is evading property taxes by living rent-free on behalf of the church that he pastors for. It's just funny. It's like, you don't even pay the taxes that you want the American people to pay.
100%. 100%. The other thing that was really irking me about this, like, people step out of their roles to step into politics, right? What is the exception for pastors? Because this, to me, is like, this is the worst thing you can possibly do for Christianity. I've really subscribed to the idea that people don't hate Christianity. People hate Christians because they're such hypocrites. We're all hypocrites. It's a natural thing. Like, we are human, but Christians make it less palpable to spread the gospel when we have instances like this. To have people who are so divisive and political be outwardly involved in a church and not be forced to step away from that in order to serve their country, I just feel like that's not good for church and the gospel in general. And if you're a pastor and that is what you're looking for people to find God, for people to find Jesus, it's just it's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad overall, unless, of course, your incentive isn't about bringing people to God. It's not bringing people to Jesus. It's about what's doing good for the church's financial coffers, which is about, we have a sitting senator that's a pastor here. If you want to come here, the senator, if you want to sit in the
Yes.
office with the senator, maybe you should come and attend our church, become a regular member, tithe, etc.
Yes.
That, to me, raises a lot of ethical questions in my mind.
Yes. I totally agree with you. It's one thing to be involved in the church, it's another to get free housing. I think if he wanted to step away from the church in some aspects, away from leadership, if you will, where he was a member and he was involved in certain charities or whatnot, there's ways to do it without raising these ethical concerns. I think the fact that he's in Congress and voting for certain things and also getting this free housing and it's a luxurious mansion. It's very hypocritical. That's not really what the Christianity teaches. It's not really, we want people to live not maybe an austere life, but you don't need a lot of things. You only need God. You need Jesus. You don't need a lot of the frills of life, right? So it's like, why does this church have a mansion? I mean, I could see if they had maybe like an apartment next door or something and he was living in it, but it just seems extremely luxurious and extravagant for no reason.
Yeah, something about it's not settling right with me. I'm sure that we're going to have investigations that are going to be dubbed political, but probably should have been started a long time ago. It's just that the previous administration's lack of interest in people that are their political friends and allies is, taken longer than it should have to start investigating things that are very obviously highly suspicious. But I really want to get into this whole Elon Musk baby mama drama. So we have not talked about this on the show at all. I don't even know. I don't know why necessarily. I just feel like a lot of people were covering it. And so you could go on to like any other YouTube channel and watch about this. But now, the last 24 hours, I just can't look away. So I'm going to try and give you a recap on this. And Hayley, please chime in if I miss anything, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So popular commentator Ashley St. Clair alleged that Elon Musk was the father of her now 6-month-old child. And I believe in early February, about February 10th to 13th time frame, Ashley alleged that Elon Musk stopped communicating with her. And she then went public with claims that Elon is her baby daddy. And of course, Elon didn't step back or say anything like, no, that wasn't me. He seemed to fully admit to it. And then a few days later, it came out, text messages showing that Ashley, she was shown in a particularly negative light, that she had told a friend she planned to seduce Elon Musk and get pregnant with his baby, and obviously seemingly worked. So that gets you caught up to today. Am I missing anything up until the drama from last night? Is that right?
Well, she had asked for privacy and then she went and did a sit down with the New York Post and then took everything on X. So it seemed like the excuse that she was making was, I've tried to get Elon to answer my text messages and this was my last straw, my last ditch effort to get Elon Musk to answer my demands or whatever it was. But she made it public despite, 2 days prior asking for privacy, which was interesting. At the start of it, I thought, okay, well, let's give her that privacy. And then when she did the sit down and then all this stuff that's happened since then, which we'll get into, I don't, all bets are off.
Yeah, you're right. It was odd. It was like, hey, I really want privacy. Then 180. Also, I'm going to do a sit down with the New York Post.
Actually, no, I don't.
Yeah, no, I actually don't. So where the real drama came in was last night. It shit hit the actual fan. So over the weekend, paparazzi caught Ashley offloading her $100,000 car, which was a black Model S Tesla. And she claimed she was selling it, quote, because I need to make up for the 60% cut Elon made to our son's child support. And in the video footage, she claims that Musk slashed her child support after she sued him for sole custody of the child. Before I tell you guys more information, Laura Looper, interesting character, was calling her a gold digger because allegedly that Tesla was gifted to Elon Musk, or from Elon Musk to Ashley St. Clair. Real quick before we get into more of that, she sued him for sole custody of the child. Knowing Elon, it doesn't sound like he really wanted to be like particularly a part of this child's life. So I'm interested if you have thoughts on that.
I mean, he has so many. He's claimed that he's really concerned about the population decline and how, people like our age that they're not getting married, they're not having as many children. I think it's more of like an economic factor, but Elon Musk is certainly doing his part to make up for it with, I think now this is 13 children.
Mhm. Yeah.
And he certainly has the money to bankroll all of these children until at least they're 18. And maybe beyond that, I don't know. Some of Elon Musk's older children have, disavowed him. But the 60% cut, was that before or after the $500,000? Because
Yeah.
if the
Let me get to
cut,
that.
so Elon Musk had replied to Laura Loomer's tweet by saying,
Yeah.
like, well, I've given Ashley St. Clair $2.5 million and I give her $500,000.
Let me read that tweet real quick. It says, I don't know if the child is mine or not, but come
Which
on,
is
Elon, you're a bit
insane,
of a
but we'll get
hoe,
into
calling her a hoe, but says, but I'm not against finding out. No court order is needed. Despite not knowing for sure, I've given Ashley $2.5 million and am sending her $500,000 a year moving forward.
Moving forward, he said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so maybe that's the 60% cut. So now I have even less sympathy, although 60% of 500,000 is still enough to raise a child on your own, but maybe not to her liking. Maybe she wants a penthouse apartment. Maybe she wants the lavish lifestyle. I think she slept with Elon Musk thinking I could make this work for me, and it's not working for her in the way that she thought it was. I think maybe she thought sleeping with Elon Musk would push her to the top of X influencership or what have you. I don't know. But it seems like that ship has sailed.
Yeah, actually, in a read her response, she responded to Elon. This is where shit really went wild. She said, Elon, we asked you to confirm paternity through a test before our child, who you named, was even born. You refused. And you weren't sending me money. You were sending support to your child that you thought was necessary until we withdrew most of it to maintain control and punish me for disobedience. But you're really only punishing your son. It's ironic that your last effort in court was to try to gag me, which is slang or like judicial terms for trying to silence her, while you use a social media channel you literally own to distribute derogatory messages about me and our child to the entire world. It's about control with you, and everyone can see that. America needs you to grow up, you petulant man-child. No one feels bad for you that you have $500,000 salary now for knocking up one of them or getting knocked up by one of the most famous men in the world.
Right. I don't
just
know. Like, are we supposed to feel bad that he has slashed whatever the payment was to now $500,000 a year? That's certainly enough money to raise a child. Like I said, no one feels bad for you. She's selling the Tesla for $100,000, or the car was worth $100,000, whatever it's worth now. I don't know. Maybe a little less than that. So what is that to make up for? You need $100,000, like, for what? For what? I mean, to fund your lavish lifestyle? I don't understand. Plus, do we think the Daily Mail was staked outside of Ashley St. Clair's apartment with all the stuff that is happening with Elon Musk? Or do we think that maybe she called the Daily Mail or other friends in the media to cover this? Because who would know who she is if she's just like walking down the street? Like, I honestly, if I tripped over her, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's Ashley St. Clair. Like, she's not that famous. Like, yeah, she has over 1 million followers on X,
I mean,
but
it's nothing in the real world. No one
you're
knows who she
living in New
is.
York City. Like, you just look like every other bitch. So I don't know if she maybe called someone to cover it, but it just seemed interesting that Carvana was picking up her Tesla and someone caught it on camera. And then she
Oh, I
started
know.
taking questions from the media. So it's like, this is all about attention. It's all about slamming Elon Musk and getting attention from not only the public, but from him. I think a lot of this is stemming from the fact that she thought that this was going to go differently for her. I think she didn't think, oh, I'm going to get canceled over this. She thought, I'm going to be Elon Musk's maybe wife, maybe favorite baby mama. I don't know. Baby mama of the week. I don't know. But I think she thought that it was going to be a little more glamorous than it's turned out to be.
Absolutely, because at the beginning, and I understand how she got to that conclusion, at the beginning it did. she was one of the most famous people on X, and we assumed that she got there because her commentary is insightful and funny, but in actuality, she got to that level of fame by sleeping her way to the top, which is very clear now. And if it was successful her in that endeavor, she just probably assumed that that success would keep going in her endeavors with Elon. But I think that's like the main message that we preach to young women is like, no offense, you are special, but you're not special to these men. Like, they will just use you. So you need to be sensitive. You need to be secretive and, like, guard yourself from people who can be naturally vindictive and looking to just like repopulate the world. You're just not that special. And that's got to be a hard pill to swallow. I'm not trying to say that as if like, how did she not realize this? But like, she's our same age, just like a year younger than me. Like, we're the same age. It's like, this by now.
Yeah. I mean, not only that, she had been on a podcast talking about birth control and how to use it. So that's interesting. I mean, it seems like she maybe forgot, or maybe she purposely forgot to get pregnant with Elon Musk's child, which seems likely. But she's not, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what she's doing now. She can't rely on X to make money. She's not posting on X anymore. I think she had a book with Brave Books. I don't know how well or not well that book is doing, but she used to work for the Babylon Bee. I don't know if she's there anymore. She doesn't have that in her X bio anymore. So maybe she is just relying on Elon Musk for money at this point, and certainly $500,000 a year is enough. So she can just go right off into the sunset and we don't have to hear from her ever again.
That would have been the best thing she could have possibly done for herself, is take that $500,000 and shut up. Like you said, ride into the sunset and enjoy your life. Anyway, I could talk to you for literally hours because I miss you and I wish you were still here in Nashville.
I know,
but
I miss you too.
If everybody wants to follow along your ride and your ascension to the top of the podcast charts, where can they follow you?
Sure. My show is live on Rumble, 6 p.m. Eastern time, Monday to Friday. So rumble.com/Hayley, Hayley, will bring you there. Plus available on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcast, whenever you want to listen. So
You're awesome.
And I'm at Hayley Caronia on all platforms.
Awesome. Guys, if you're a real one and you made it to the end of today's show, will you drop the socks emoji as an homage to Luigi's dramatic socks? Thanks, friends. I'll see you back here on Thursday. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe and leave a comment about how beautiful, intelligent, and funny I am. And if you want more content, click right over here for more videos and clips of my show. I'll see you back here next time. Bye.